Alex Wagner is contributing editor at The Atlantic. In her latest article, she writes about the FBI's renewed investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of private email servers while Secretary of State, specifically, though, about the impact it could have should Clinton win the presidency next week. Wagner writes, in part, and I quote, "To ascribe this erosion of trust as merely a page from some nefarious conservative playbook would be to underestimate the depth of the problem Clinton has created for herself." End quote. How'd I do?
So good. I love when you read my work, Josh.
I'm going to be...
It puffs up my ego. Herculean.
Alex Wagner, aforementioned, joins us now. First, your reaction to what we just heard there. Again, it's Barack Obama playing a part.
Sure.
But it speaks to, I think, exactly what it is you've written about.
Yeah, I mean, as an actual line of argument that the sort of criticism of Hillary is that she's moody, I'm not sure that carries the same amount of weight as saying that someone is not born in the United States and therefore disqualified from holding the office of president. But I absolutely think in the same way that race and identity and that sort of Pandora's box was cracked open during the Obama administration, gender and sex is going to be very much on the front burner should Hillary Clinton win the White House. When you sort of talk about the more nefarious underpinnings and the tentacles that go back to, you know, how much of this should Hillary Clinton own? How much of the trust and believability problem is of her own making, as I write about in The Atlantic? You know, I think there are multiple prongs here. There are scandals from the 90s, the fact that we're still talking about Kenneth Starr and Whitewater, the fact that that still remains a sort of demon that the Clintons have to contend with even now suggests that this email scandal is going to haunt her well into her administration. But then there's a sort of trust and believability issue that is driven by policy. And I think that that is a vestige of the Clinton years, the third way politics, triangulation, the centrist Democrat platform that Bill Clinton was the architect of. That is no longer the Democratic Party. And Hillary Clinton has acknowledged as much in her run for the president. But I think there is skepticism on the part of the progressive base that has been held in check up until this point. But now that the reality of a Clinton administration is sort of is dawning on everyone, you are starting to see some restive actions on the part of progressives.
Well, the progressive, essentially, you know, we pulled you a little left, and you're going to benefit from it. Yeah. But then the idea that you're who you are in public and who you are in private, and we're about to see that play out with the administration.
Absolutely, her appointments, where she is on trade, where she is on a host of financial issues.
And yet this seems gender non-specific in the same way that people have been arguing, especially this week, that it's interesting that sexism and the way it played out in this election cycle, in fact, played out because of the GOP nominee and not because of the first female candidate, major party candidate for president. Her issues with trust and trustworthiness do seem, at this point, to be gender non-specific. Yeah, to a degree. It's more about a candidate who seems to choose privacy always, for better or worse.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure, if I were a gender studies professor, I would say probably the profile of a wicked and sort of secretive, nefarious woman is something that is popular in, culture in terms of female villains. But I think that there is, the bulk of the concern around her trust issues has to do with policy less than it does sex.
Our mutual friend, John Halleman, this morning.
A good friend of the family.
Next door, yes. Friend of the program. Called the response thus far from the campaign with regard to Director Comey's letter sent, and then the new idea that there's a double standard, that the FBI didn't want to weigh in on whether or not Russia was officially behind the hacking of the DNC at all. Called it a Clinton classic. Find a pivot and hit the pivot.
Absolutely.
Hard.
Yeah.
Do you see, again... Do you see them doing that? And frankly, what impact does that have on lingering concerns that Hillary Clinton simply still has not addressed this central issue that has really dogged her for over a year? Well,
okay, so I absolutely agree with John Halleman. I would never disagree with him that it is a Clinton classic in a number of ways. One is turn the fire on the aggressor in the way that and Amy Chozick in the New York Times details this. They turn their fire on Kenneth Starr during Whitewater. They're turning their fire on James Comey, who's very much in the hot seat. I was on a campaign conference call yesterday with Robbie Mook and Brian Fallon, the spokesperson, and they were trying to point the finger again at Comey Comey and say, listen, it's wrong that he brought up the continued investigation several days before the election, but we would like him to really explore this nefarious link between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And someone said, do you understand that you're asking him to do the very thing that you're complaining about? And their response was, Comey started it. Now, that also seems like that is, the Clintons are brawlers, right? There is not the same sort of, I think that the Obama administration has sought to operate above the fray in a lot of respects. That is not how the Clintons operate, and you are seeing that play out in this particular moment.
I'm going to get you out here on this one then. Is that a run out the clock idea, which really is to ask, does this change minds significantly one way or another?
The only people that I think are truly affected by this are down ballot Democrats and Republicans.
Well, what, of course, it says about November 9th and beyond.
Can it arrive here soon, please, Josh?
I can.
I need it.
We'll just get you like a cryogenic chamber.
Please. Rip Van Winkle me.
8 days later.
Please.
Alex Wagner, as always, your insights are duly appreciated.
Thank you for your time, Josh.